please meet and greet our dear brother. We're in this, in the faith community, we're in this together. Muslim, Jews, Christian, Buddhists, all faith traditions and people of conscience. Please recognize our dear brother, Reverend Graylin Hagler.
It's good to see all your faces out here, because folks think that we have forgotten. We have forgotten that there's a war in Iraq. We've forgotten that there's a war in Afghanistan. That we've forgotten that there's a war against working people right here in the United States. But we're here to say that we have not forgotten a thing, and we intend to hold this administration accountable. We intend to continue to stand up until all the troops are brought home. All the troops are brought home. You see, you can't address unemployment at home unless you begin to bring troops home and stop spending all of that money to wage an illegal and immoral and unethical war in other places, in other countries. We intend to spend what we need to build houses and to get people out of foreclosures, to not bail out the banks, and definitely not supply the military-industrial complex. We want to bring these troops home now. We're here to tell President Obama that when we work to bring change, we didn't just change a face in the White House. Because if he's going to continue with the Bush policies, we might as well have kept Bush. We worked for change, to change the entire paradigm in which this country operates in the world. We organized for change so that working people will not be thrown out in the street. We organized for change so that we could close Guantanamo Base, so that we could end the war in Iraq, so that we would have no more military adventurism around the world. We worked for that, Mr. Obama. And if you understand the constituency that brought you to the White House, then you will begin to bend to be more accountable to those folks who walked streets and knocked on doors to get you elected. We intend to hold you accountable because we are the change. We are
for peace and social justice around this country. I want to bring up Pam Africa from the International Concerned Family and Friends of Mumia Abu Jamal. Pam Africa.
We are the what? We are the change that we can depend on. Sisters and brothers, you know that every movement requires some support. You know, one of the things that we recognize is that the right wing got all the support. But that should not be the case, because our cause is just, our cause is moral, our cause is ethical, and therefore we need to raise some resources to continue to resource this movement, because we got to build this movement and roll this movement on until it brings true change to this nation. God bless you, and continue to struggle.
The President of Veterans for Peace, Mike Ferner.
Good afternoon. It's a beautiful day. When a bomb started falling on Baghdad 7 years ago today, some of us who had some idea of how these things go said this is not going to be quick, and we're probably going to still be in Iraq 10 years from now. Well, that was opposed to what a few of the liars in high places said about how fast and easy this was going to be, and their lies were echoed in the right-wing media machine. But today, we're still in Iraq, we're still in Afghanistan, we're starting the 8th year in Iraq. In 2 years, we will probably still be there. In 3 years, we will probably still be there. A decade from now, we will probably still be there. And you can bet we will, unless enough of us throw out enough people out of Congress who keep voting money, unless enough of us find the courage to sit down and gum up business as usual, and unless enough soldiers refuse to fight in these illegal and immoral wars, and Veterans for Peace is done being a good soldier. There is an enormous cost to this war. We know that. I want to use just one example. I come from a small town, Toledo, Ohio, 300,000 people. Our citizens, since the invasion of Afghanistan, have sent to these wars $750 million of tax money just to these wars. Last week, the mayor tells us they're laying off 20% of our police officers. Firefighters are next. Our city parks are going to be closed and the swimming pools this summer. The list goes on in every city across this country. The other cost, of course, is the cost in human suffering. I worked as a hospital corpsman for 3 years during the Vietnam War, and I worked in a Navy hospital and tried to put young men back together when they returned from Vietnam and Cambodia. And I can tell you one thing, that anybody in this town, before they vote one more nickel for war or order one more troop into war, ought to have to work for a couple of months in the backwards of a VA hospital and find out what it's like to take care of men and women who can no longer get up to go to the bathroom, have to learn how to put catheters in themselves, and all of the costs associated with that. At the end of the march, we'll be coming right back here. Many of you probably know that at 4 p.m. the President has invited Congress to the White House. Veterans for Peace, Iraq Veterans Against the War, Military Families Speak Out will be joining up right on that corner where we're going to take off from, and we're going to see what would be a good thing to do to continue our presence around the White House. Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, the Kaaba will ask, is it safe? Vanity will ask, is it popular? But conscience will ask, is it right? And the person I introduce to you now has always spoke truth to power and has always stood up for that which is right. Please give a thunderous welcome to Ramsey Clark.
Hey, we've got our work cut out for us. And a long way to go. But we have to start with today, the 7th anniversary of the war of aggression against Iraq. The Nuremberg judgment declared the war of aggression the supreme international crime, which it pretty obviously is. Our war of aggression was against an essentially defenseless country. We don't want to recognize that. George Bush wanted to play the hero on the deck of Abraham Lincoln, you remember. But that country had been bombed to daylights in the Gulf War. Their military armament was essentially destroyed. Their infrastructure was bombed out. And on Hiroshima Day of 1970, we had forced the United Nations to impose genocidal sanctions on Iraq. I guess we chose Hiroshima Day on purpose. And that one act took more than 1.5 million lives, according to every organization that deals with health and food, children, UNICEF and Food and Agriculture and World Food Program and all the rest. 1.5 million lives were taken by sanctions imposed on the people, and half of the 1.5 million were children under 5. But it wasn't a neat division. You know, 1.5 million suffered and everybody else lived happily ever after. Stunted children, a generation of stunted children. Impaired health on the general population. And we came in there like gangbusters, and it's been hell on earth ever since. And there has to be accountability for it. If there's not accountability, America will never stop warring. We have to believe we can do it. We have to begin with hearings. There got to be hearings in the House Judiciary Committee and the Senate Judiciary Committee. The Department of Justice has to investigate. We have committed the supreme international crime, and those who are responsible for it have to be held accountable here by the people of the United States. We can't look to The Hague or some other organization to do it. This is our responsibility. We let it happen. We participated in its happening. And now it has to be paid for. You know, we've been in wars. I joined the Marines at age 17, right at the end of World War II, and we've been in wars more than half the years, I mean active wars, ever since. And we've been in inactive wars all over the planet ever since. And we've been spending more money on militarism than the rest of the world combined. And until we stop that, our country is a menace to life on the planet. Until we cut our military budget, declared today the untouchable part, you know. Everything else can go. The children can be out of school, the sick can die, but we cannot touch the military budget because our war machine and our military-industrial complex and the rich of the nation depend on it. We've got to cut our military budget by more than 50% right away within 5-10 years. We've got to work at it. It's the only road to peace on earth. And then we've got to go down to 75% shortly after that and 10% left. And we'll be safer than we've ever been before. And we won't be a menace anymore. And we can make friends instead of enemies on the planet. So let's get up, roll up our sleeves, and not rest until we do it.